Hey everybody, Tony D with a hot take on various things. Excuse me why I just. A bunch of little things that I wanted to follow up on. First, a little business. The audiobook for Wokistan has been recorded, and I'm just waiting on approval for Amazon. It takes 10 to 14 days. There's more technical issues involved, so it's been like 2 days. So give it another week. I will be sure to let you know. Um, in other news, let's turn to the news. All right, so the other woke thing I did woke Hollywood yesterday. So the other thing I failed to mention was there's a story about Barnes and Noble. They released a bunch of classic, or they wanted to release a bunch of classic literature for Black History Month, where the characters from these classic stories were portrayed in the illustrations as being black, which I thought was interesting. I didn't think it was particularly bad, but apparently woke Twitter had a breakdown over it, and now Barnes and Noble are pulling it. Um, to me, it's no different than if they decided to, for instance, take a classic story. One of the books was Frankenstein, so it was Black Frankenstein. So if you did a production of Frankenstein and whoever was playing Blackenstein, whoever was playing Frankenstein was black. I mean, who cares? It just would have been the actors, playing a role. I don't think that's any different. But apparently, for woke Twitter, they had a meltdown over it, and I think part of the problem with woke Hollywood and our woke politics has been Twitter. Twitter, Twitter, Twitter. People listen to Twitter, they get a false sense of the pulse of the nation, and it's really wrong. Tim Pool, in a video, was talking about it, and he says that only about 2% of the country is even on Twitter, which I believe. I mean, it's not many people I know are on Twitter. Very few people, even people like me who have to have their own projects to promote, they just don't have time for that nonsense, and it's a lot of nonsense. There's a ton of comic book guys on it, and a ton of writers or people claiming to be writers, and a lot of these people complain that they can't get anything done, and yet they're always on Twitter tweeting away. My response to them is get off of Twitter. Just get off of it. Like, I use it for promotion, but I limit myself and I only do it at certain times. So you might notice that I'm on Twitter on the weekdays, but I'm rarely on it on the weekends. I'm way too busy on the weekends. I'm trying to get stuff done. I was recording a book this weekend. During the week I'm doing stuff and I'm running around, and then I get on Twitter while I have like a moment. Um, so and even then I don't tweet that much. I tweet about the books, and that's about it. Maybe a couple other things just to make sure I'm not relentlessly promoting. But for me, it's a tool to promote. For a lot of other people, it's almost like a confessional, and they just throw stuff out there. I've seen people talk about, oh, I can't get motivated today. Please, somebody tell me something to motivate me so I could write, or so I could get up and face the day. Oh, and please donate to my Patreon. It's like, if you want to do that, I mean, that's your business, but I feel that that's not healthy. It's not healthy to just sort of dump out your purse in the public square to a bunch of strangers and say, "Oh, help me! I'm a pathetic individual. I can't get it together." And some of it's just political, straight up political, and people that like to go back and forth about that. But just like in all social media, it gets a little nasty sometimes. People say things that they wouldn't say if they were actually facing the person, and I think it's really warped the discourse of this country, and it continues to warp Hollywood, the publishing world, and comic books. I said this before. I was auditioning for some comic work, and they were asking me what my Twitter following was, as if that made a damn bit of difference about my talent. It just doesn't. What they think is that a large Twitter following translates into a large audience for your comic or book or whatever. It doesn't. And in fact, a lot of people who are on Twitter are also promoting their own work, and they're just grabbing up followers as best they can. I get followers all the time. It's some business or some person who's promoting whatever, and they're just adding everybody. They're just going through and they're adding people. They don't know me. Maybe they're a fan of my work, but sometimes I look at it and I go, this person can't possibly be a fan of my work. They can't possibly know me. And a lot of times you'll get followers and then they just disappear. Like, I've been hovering at like something like 820 followers for God knows how long. I just got involved with this writers community, so it shot up a little. But these people who are obsessed with their follower count, I mean, it's fun to keep track, but it doesn't really mean much, because Twitter is, once you have a few hundred people you're following, there's going to be so many tweets. You're just not going to see that person very often. And quite frankly, I don't have time to tweet enough that for somebody who has or who's following 1,000 people. I mean, I'll just be lost in the deluge. I'd have to tweet 5 or 6 times a day, and I don't even tweet that much. Mostly I just try to tweet 1 or 2 tweets about the books, maybe a couple of offhand nutty comments, and then I'm done. I mean, maybe I should tweet more to promote, but quite frankly, there's just not enough people on Twitter in the United States. And what gets thrown around on Twitter isn't even that important for the people who are on Twitter. It's just the entire Twitter concept was just a wank to begin with. People just joined Twitter and they were posting pictures of food and saying, oh, I went here, and, just having fun with it at first. It's just a novelty. It's not, Trump turned it into something, but beyond that, who cares? Beyond, it's just a lazy way for reporters to get a story about politicians. Oh, look what so-and-so tweeted today. Look what Trump tweeted. Look what Nancy Pelosi tweeted back. It's a public square. That's interesting, but ultimately, because Twitter's gaming the system and censoring it and deciding who's right and who's wrong, it's not even a valid area, really, because at any time you could be kicked off. They just kicked off James O'Keefe for violating the rules. He didn't really violate any rules. They're just kicking him off because he runs Project Veritas and he embarrassed Bernie Sanders again. And out in the left-leaning Silicon Valley, Bernie Sanders is probably extremely popular. And speaking of Bernie Sanders, the Iowa caucuses continue to be an absolute cluster mess, and I can't believe that the Democrats just don't stop shooting themselves in the foot. I'm just waiting for a moment where they just shut up. Nancy Pelosi came out today with a few statements. It's like, why don't you just shut up? Why don't you just shut up at this point and not say anything? Just don't say a damn word. Let it all blow over. Let the news cycle grind through another 2 times. Let Trump say what he's going to say for a couple of news cycles and just shut up. Stop shooting yourself in the foot. At this point, it's getting pathetic. It's not good. People are living in 2 worlds, right? They're living in Trump land, or they're living in, Nancy Pelosi land or the Democrat land. And in Trump land, everything's going amazing. And in the Democrat land, man, the world's on fire and we're all going to die. But neither one is true. Trump's not the Messiah. There's stuff wrong with him. But, the problem is the people on the left side of politics today are so extreme, so woke, so caught up in their bubble. They cannot see the forest from the trees, and they absolutely will not stop. And Twitter is a place for that. Reddit is a place for that. Fortunately for Reddit, there's so many subreddits, and they're so big. There are plenty of places where politics just don't even come into the subreddit. There's just, and you can be anonymous on there, more so than Twitter. But I think Twitter, though, has really damaged the discourse of America in general. Long before Trump even got on it. Trump actually turned it into something. It's actually a good place to hear what the president has to say because he's just saying stuff off the top of his head. But for other people who don't have the reach and popularity of the president, it's bad because Twitter makes arbitrary decisions on people and just yanks their account or suspends the account here, and you're never. I don't think you're ever very clear on what you did. Although some people, you're very clear. This is why we canceled you, and then others, nothing. So I just wish that Twitter would go back to the way it was, like the old internet, and just be Twitter. Just be Twitter. Let people post offensive things. If you don't like it, you can block those offensive people. I block people I don't like, and you could do it too. You'll never see their tweets again. You can mute them and block them and do all these things. Twitter should certainly develop the tools for that. And if you only want to see your 10 friends and you create your own little feedback loop online, like you should totally be able to do that on Twitter. And then you never have to see these people, never have to interact with other people if that's what you want, if they offend you so much. But anyhow, the state of the union today is, basically fallout from the State of the Union. And, Trump called them out on their BS, which was pretty amazing that he did. And now there's going to be investigations on the Democrats. And, you reap what you sow, Democrats. It's really time to just stop. Just stop what you're doing. Stop going on Twitter, certainly. That would be the number one thing I would say to Democrats. Politicians, just never go on Twitter again. Never go on it again. Don't tweet. Delete your account. Or just make sure an intern runs it and just post like the most boring stuff. Just announcements of where you're going to be and what you're voting on. And that's it. Don't engage. Don't engage the trolls, because once you start doing that, there's nowhere to go but down. Never feed the trolls. Number one rule of the internet: never feed the trolls. And what that means is don't engage them. If they come in and insult you, just ignore them or mute them and block them, and then just be done with them. And you mute and block enough people, they'll just disappear off your feed, and you can go on with your life and not have to worry about a thing.